Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Deeds of Arms. For everyone interested in realistic close combat training, from marksmanship, bladed weapons, ground fighting, and so on, our mission is to develop and create tactically proficient human weapon systems of high moral character through cooperative, collaborative, and competitive training methods. Guys, today I'm very excited. I've got my good friend, Nick Delgadillo. He is the invisible mustache behind Starting Strength. And he is here to talk, and we're here to help you guys get started on your New Year's resolution. Nick, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? That I was not expecting that smooth intro. That was awesome. That little video collage was awesome. Like, I'm really excited to go train or do something right now.
Yeah, man. It's like Terrell Owens, love me some me. No. God damn, that was narcissistic as fuck. Jesus.
I wasn't even talking about that. It just looked cool.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you were teasing me.
I wasn't making fun of you, man.
It's all good.
Do that.
Even if you were, it's cool, right? It's like one of those things. You put yourself out there, you kind of deserve it, right? So
we can't be breaking each other down. As I think you and I are one of the few truly. This is a new term that I've kind of heard, or maybe I made it up. I don't know. Yeah. But as two of the most ethnically fluid men on the face of the earth, we can't be breaking each other down.
You know what? I like that. We're gonna use that, guys. We're gonna put that into the official lexicons. Ethnically fluids.
Because they used to just be ambiguously ethnic or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Like I got that shit from Matt too. So like,
oh yeah,
yeah. Like imagine like we're like working in DC and there's like this room full of killers and then there's me, the fucking college student, and he's like talking about. Yeah. So yeah, it was so yeah.
Hey man, the truth is that we're kind of brown and we have dark skin and we have dark skin, dark hair. We could fit in anywhere.
Yeah, man. Eyebrow game on point. You could be Arab. Right. You could be Italian. Puerto Rican. Right. Who knows, right?
Whatever.
It's part of my camouflage. So
that's right.
so yeah, Nick. I mean, you've been on the road a lot lately. Like, let's talk about a little bit about what you've been doing, what you have going on lately.
Yeah, a lot of work stuff and a lot of, I guess, what you'd consider personal stuff. I mean, it's all work stuff for me at this point, just because of all the things I'm involved in. But I travel a lot for my day job, so to speak, for Starting Strength. So I travel to the gyms. I do workshops. We had a coaches conference in Omaha at the beginning of the month. So a lot of Starting Strength stuff, and then also a lot of training stuff. So my it always seems to work out this way where October, November, December, just insane. Just every weekend there's something going on, whether it's a conference or a seminar or a workshop that we're doing for Starting Strength or something that I'm going to for my own training. I took Tim Herron's class a couple weeks ago. I did a class with John Hearn. Nice. I don't even remember. Yeah, but I'm somewhere almost every weekend right now.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you're an interesting guy because you've got, the finest mind in the modern fitness industry, and then you're going around doing all these things. How did that work out? Where you kind of, I mean, did you start with martial arts, and then you got into strength, and then you get into shooting? Like, where did that all start off, and for you as far as like your journey?
I think two big things. So I started lifting in high school for football. So I wanted to play football. When I got to high school, there was a football team, so I joined the football team. Yeah. And then after football, the coach or something was like, "Hey, we lift in the off season." So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll start lifting. That sounds awesome." So I got into strength training early, like 12, 13 years old. And I got pretty strong in school. And I got really good at football. So football, rugby, strength training was most of my early athletic life. And then in my early 20s, I got into martial arts. I got into Muay Thai and submission grappling. I was working with a guy who was an MMA fighter, really, really good at Muay Thai school up in St. Louis. And that was kind of my entry into martial arts. I'd always thought it was cool. I always wanted to do it, but in the 90s, early 2000s, it was the world of karate and taekwondo, right? So there was really nothing around. And I had no idea what Muay Thai was. So we went with a friend of ours, checked it out. I was like, oh, damn, this is cool, you know? And then that kind of put me on the path. I started teaching and coaching stuff early on. I've always liked teaching and coaching. It's always kind of been my thing. I wanted to be, you know, any kind of teacher for as long as I can remember. So that's always interested me. And then I got into the world of teaching normal people because, you know, Muay Thai in St. Louis in 2001 was like 8 people, you know, and there was a very small community. There were some people doing jujitsu, and there were some people doing, I remember there was like 2 jujitsu schools in St. Louis at the time. And there was a small group of people who were doing kickboxing and MMA at the time. So point being that it was a small group of people, always the same people, and people who are sort of self-selected, right? Who want to do that kind of insane shit. Is cussing okay, by the way?
No, man, you could talk however you want, man. It's America.
All right. Good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So my point is that I got into Krav Maga around 2004. And the thing that Krav Maga taught me was how to work with normal human beings, like people who walk in the door because they want to learn something. They want to learn self-defense. They have no idea what it is, right? They have no idea what that actually means. They have no idea. They've never done it before. Maybe they've taken like a self-defense seminar or workshop where they learn how to do like wrist releases or something. So teaching something relatively hard to people who are not coordinated in a lot of instances, who are not used to hard physical activity in a lot of instances, that was really, you know, say what you will about Krav Maga, but it introduced thousands and thousands of people to what you could consider hard training.
Yeah, let me ask you real quick though about Krav, because you know, in the circles we run in, Krav has the reputation it has,
rightfully so.
And then, you know, right. So, but at the same time, so you go from this Muay Thai submission grappling background. What attracted you to Krav?
Everything that every technique wise, in terms of the strikes and the ground fighting was the same, especially because I was fortunate enough to find a really good school with a really good instructor. So my first instructor was Sam Sadeh, the guy from Israel who was very much into actually fighting, like actually sparring, right? So I think I lucked out in walking into that school, and I walk in and I'm watching people throw punches exactly the way I learned to throw punches. People throw elbows exactly the way I learned to throw elbows, throwing knees exactly the way I learned to throw knees, and doing, you know, sweeps and stuff in the guard, just like I learned in my submission grappling. And on top of that, you get the you get the cool kind of stress factor involved, right? Where you're doing drills and trying to make it as quote unquote realistic as possible and putting people under stress. So it all made sense to me at the time, and it still does in a lot of respects. It's just the execution wasn't very good when I step back and look at it now. Now the way we were doing things at that school, I think, was pretty damn good, really damn good under Sam's leadership. And then Sam taught me, I guess one of the best lessons I learned from Sam is that whatever's the official thing, whatever's in the manual is not necessarily the best way to do things. And that fit really well with my overall approach to things too. So, you know, we would test things, we would think about things, we would spar. And honestly, man, I mean, we did Krav Maga, but we took the things that worked, we took the principles and ran with them, and then kind of just rejected anything that didn't really work. So yeah, that, you know, all of the stuff that I was doing in my security work and in my Muay Thai, the Krav Maga was just kind of an extension of that.
Nice.
I don't think that a lot of people had the same experience, you know, going from another martial art to Krav Maga. You know, I've been to plenty of Krav Maga schools, and they're not that. A lot of them are not that, right? Yeah. and even at the time, they weren't, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I carried that on for forever, man. And then, you know, I was under various affiliate, well, not various affiliations. I was under the main affiliation at the time, Krav Maga Worldwide, for years and years and years, and
Mhm.
largely ignored a lot of what they did. And it just, whoever I was involved with in terms of the owners of the schools and stuff wanted to have an affiliation. I was never really into the whole affiliation thing.
Yeah.
But it gave you some legitimacy and stuff like that. And you could, whatever, for me, it was always about the quality of the instruction, the quality of the instructors, the quality
Mhm.
of the classes, and convincing people that your stuff is better just by the experience. Like, you
Right.
come in and it should be obvious that what we're doing here is different from what anybody else is doing in the city. And there were 2 or 3, maybe 4 different places you could go do Krav Maga. And I would always tell people, because I ran the school for a while, and I would tell people, go try them all out, see which one you like best.
Right.
And to this day, I have the same approach. It's like, if you go to a different school and you decide that that's who you like, you decide that these people are cool, these people are who I want to train with, you should stay there, right?
Right.
If you go to their school and you go to our school, and you walk in and you like our approach, our environment, you like our people better, then you should come with us. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
convince anybody that mine is better than yours. I truly believe that it is, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the customer gets to decide.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, guys, if you're joining us on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, come on over to YouTube. All right. We want to not necessarily get away from Meta, but we want to make sure that we're driving all the traffic to one location, and YouTube is going to be kind of the place where it's the library, right? It's not the feeder that social media Meta is. So I'm going to be cutting the stream off on YouTube on Facebook and Twitter. So head over to YouTube, just search John Valentine Combatives, and you should find us. Okay. So Nick, let's fast forward now. A couple of years, right? And now you're, even among like people who do self-defense training full time, like you've got some serious, like, legitimate credentials. I mean, you've gone to the Range Master advanced course, and guys, the Range Master courses, they're impartial grading. Okay, like, you either can do it
Yeah.
or you can't, and it's incredibly demanding. The basic instructor, even, you know what I mean, you get a 200-page manual the first day, and then you got to take a written test on that thing, and in the morning 2 days later, then you do the advanced course. And I know you're definitely getting set up for the master course. You've done the starting strength coaching. I mean, you're a big player in that, as far as getting people certified there, which is and guys, I've been trying to do it as well. It's no joke. Like, it's going to take you at least anywhere from like a year to 18 months of dedicated effort before you're ready for a platform. And you're a jiu-jitsu brown belt. So, like, I guess the first question is, how the fuck do you do all these things?
Man, if I'm honest, people ask me that all the time, and the truth is,
Yeah.
I don't. It's a constant juggle of priorities and putting things off.
Yeah.
I'm really, I don't want to say lucky, because my family, my wife, and we've all kind of worked hard to get where we are, but I'm fortunate that I've been able to set up my life that at this point, man, everything I do is all of the things that were my hobby when I was kind of grinding away at my normal jobs for years and years and years. These were all my hobbies, just doing jujitsu, doing martial arts, doing the strength training and coaching. That's always been my goal, is to be in this industry, whether it was on the self-defense side or the strength training side. And it was lots of hours, lots of before work, waking up at 4 a.m. and coaching people before work, and coaching people after work, teaching Krav Maga or teaching self-defense or teaching something after work. So it's all kind of paid off, and now at this point in my life, everything I do is my hobbies monetized. It's pretty cool, So
Yeah.
I teach strength training for a living, and I get to do my favorite part of strength training, which is coaching other coaches a lot. And I'm heavily involved with the coach development and certification for starting strength coaches. And then, my wife and I own our jiu-jitsu school now. We own
Nice.
Iowa Park Jiu-Jitsu Club. So we're doing that, and she does most of the work there. I just get to show up and teach, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
And then yeah, I'm even coaching people in the firearm stuff now too. So it's just everything I like to do. I've been just kind of busting my ass to be able to bring it to people. One of the things is, man, everything that I've always done, I've always done with the intent of teaching it to somebody, because that's I don't know, that's just how I'm wired. I like to teach things to people. And I think that's what has allowed me to become proficient at a lot of things quickly too, is when I approach things as a coach, I think about them differently than if I was just receiving the information. Right.
Do you think that has something to do with being a dad, like that you're, you know what I mean? Because Jackson, he's pretty skilled too. I mean, you're I mean, you kind of mentioned though, but your son Jackson, what, he's 13?
He's 14.
14 now, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He's been to EWO. He's got himself his orange belch. He's got that naranja, and you know what I mean. And he's doing shooting classes with you too. So
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that has a big part to play as far as like that focus on the coaching aspect?
I don't know, not for me, because I was doing that well before the kids and even before my wife. So I met my, and dude, like the fighting and the self-defense stuff has just like brought so much into my life. Like I met my wife through that. Her parents were my students at Krav Maga. And then and then starting strength is all because of the self-defense stuff too, because I needed something to fitness wise, because I was teaching fitness stuff too. So that's how starting strength came about. So yeah, I was into the coaching thing for a very long time before my family. So I think maybe my approach to being a dad is heavily influenced by my background as a coach. I think that for sure. Like I'm totally not into and this may be wrong. I don't know. We'll see how the kids turn out, but I'm not into like being super controlling or anything. It's my thought is to give the kids the tools to be able to navigate life, and almost treat their education like an apprenticeship rather than an education. Right? It's an apprenticeship for how to be an adult.
None of that arbitrary, like check the block, like, oh,
exactly.
Now you know how to, so
exactly. Right. Yeah.
So the other question I got for you too, and I think, and the reason why I'm asking is because I have a feeling I know what the answer is going to be, but there's also a lot of confusion on this. What is the difference between training or coaching the general public and then coaching other coaches? Like where is the difference in approach there? And why do you think there has to be like a coaching specific curriculum for the given subject and something for the general public?
That's a great question. I don't know that there necessarily has to be a separate curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
The approach to how the curriculum is delivered needs to be a little bit different, just a little bit. And I think the coach needs to know a lot more of the why. And not that the student doesn't need to know the why. The student needs to know the why enough so that they have enough of a foundational understanding so that what they're doing makes sense to them. So how I guess to make this a little bit more clear, how I would explain something isn't going to be fundamentally different, whether it's a lifting client or a jiu-jitsu person versus a strength coach or a jiu-jitsu coach. It's going to be the same explanation, but how that explanation is delivered is going to be a little bit different. You might be a little more technical, a little bit more detailed, a little bit more, give a little bit more background to the coach versus the student, who doesn't need to be overwhelmed with all of this background knowledge. For a lot of times for students, it's or trainees, it's we have a very specific goal right now based on the amount of time that I have with you and what I'm trying to get accomplished with that session. That may only leave us enough time to go through a progression of movements or progression of skills in order to get to that end goal. And there's going to be minimal background discussion. When you're doing coach development, there's also that, but you're also you're also teaching the method for how you deliver that in that way. And also you're giving a lot of the why you do it this way. So, like, for example, let me give you an example from the lifting world. I can teach somebody how to squat in 2 to 3 minutes.
Mhm.
And you don't necessarily, like a 55-year-old woman who's never trained before or coming in off the street who needs to get stronger doesn't need to know all of the leverage and the mechanics and the physics and the anatomy and the physiology involved in why we squat a certain way. She just needs to squat today the way that I tell her, and I can explain things to her along the way if she has questions, and that's cool. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But as the coach, I have that background knowledge in order to give that information to her when it becomes appropriate. But today we've got 1 hour. I'm going to teach you how to squat, and we're going to get you started on a program. And that squat session, in terms of learning how to squat, is going to take 2 minutes. If we're doing a coach development thing where I have a coach and I'm teaching him how to teach somebody how to squat, the ultimate delivery of that teaching method is still going to be 2 to 3 minutes, but that coach is going to require probably an hour of explanation for why did we do it in this order? Why did we do these things?
Right.
And along with that coach also has to have a bunch of background information. Like they have to know the anatomy and the physics, because all we're getting at is like how to do this, right? And the same thing can be said for jiu-jitsu or any other physical thing, right? The coach just requires more. You have to make sure that you and whoever you're developing as the coach are in agreement, or that we both understand the basic concepts, the fundamental concepts. And if those aren't there, you've got to start there before you can get to here's how you do this lift, here's how you do this submission, here's how you do this takedown. You and whoever you're working with have to be in agreement on a whole bunch of things before you get to there, if you're going to be effective at it, right? I mean, anybody can do the kind of show and tell, like do this, right, and then good luck, like practice it a bunch. That's not how I approach things. It's concepts and it's fundamentals, and then all of the end state stuff, like now you know how to teach somebody how to squat, now you know how to teach this submission, now you know how to teach this position or this takedown. All that emerges from proper concepts and proper positioning and proper understanding of all the background stuff. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so brings me to my next question, right? And with that in mind, right, you've got these three areas, right? Jiu-jitsu, or I shouldn't even say jiu-jitsu, but you have all this different forms of fighting, right? Which are like a mixed bag by itself. Then you've got shooting, right, which is another deep subject. And then you have barbell strength training, which is like, you guys blew my mind as far as like how deep that can go. There's books written about this, several of them, right? So if you guys want to go to the Asgard Co, pick up the blue book. Now with all those three things in mind, what do you think each one of those worlds is kind of missing, or were there something where you were able to fill a gap in one area based on your knowledge from another area? Does that question make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. It's funny because everybody, I have experience as both a practitioner and a coach in all three of those areas, right?
Yeah.
And each one kind of, there's overlap all the time, right? But each one has their own little worlds, right?
Right.
And in each of those worlds, everybody identifies the same problems. Mm-hmm. The stuff that you hear Rip bitch about on the podcast every single week, in terms of like the strength and conditioning industry, professional and D1 level coaches, the physical therapy world, all the stuff that we complain about in the strength and conditioning world is exactly the same issue that you see in the firearms world, and it's exactly the same issue you see in the fighting world.
Right.
Exactly the same thing. And if I can summarize it in probably the cleanest way possible, and there's a lot to this, it's not an easy thing to summarize, but generally the problem is that people look to the highest performers in terms of how they do things, and decide that that's how they should approach the problem as well.
Right.
So That's fine. That's okay. But you're missing a whole bunch of shit when you do that. You're missing a lot of the fundamental understanding that comes uh, from a bottom up approach where you strip things down to the most fundamental concepts. What are the most important things? What are the most universal things that we need to
Mhm.
understand? And then build your method or your approach or your way of looking at things based on those fundamental concepts. First principles is, a term that's used a lot. So
Mhm.
what are the first principles, and then how do I derive my approach from those first principles?
Right.
And what you'll find is that the people who are generally the best at here's the second thing. The second problem is that people conflate proficiency with coaching. It's kind of a related problem, but they're two separate development tracks, right?
Right.
The guy who's become very proficient has become very proficient generally because they want to be very proficient. The
Mhm.
guy who wants to be a good coach has a good level of proficiency if they're going to be a good coach, right? They've got to
Yeah.
be proficient at even a high level, not the highest levels generally,
Yeah.
but they also are typically not naturally gifted in one direction, because at least the way I look at it is, if you're really naturally gifted, you kind of you go so fast and you get so good that
Mhm.
you generally ignore the coaching development side of things. So you're missing the development part in terms of solving problems in your own performance and in the performance of others.
Mhm.
So, and nobody will disagree. Like, if you look at the best football coaches, the best basketball coaches, the best coaches in professional sports, they're rarely the best performing athletes, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you've seen like really, really high performing athletes get into coaching, they end up not being very good because they haven't developed as the skills that are necessary, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
That's
they're
kind of
two.
like your typical sad story of like you're training with a world champion and just like I learned nothing from that
Dude,
3 hours.
you've been in those classes. I'm sure
Yeah.
I've been in those classes, where
Yeah.
you go to the big name, and it's like, you got the superstar in front of you doing all kinds of cool shit on the range or doing all
Yeah.
kinds of cool shit on the mat. And they're trying
Yeah.
to explain to 30 or 40 people how to do this ridiculously complicated technique that a third of the class maybe does okay, and the rest of
Yeah.
the class is just like, okay. But at the end of those things, most people are like, oh, that was so awesome, but they don't understand that they just got to hang out with somebody. They just paid to hang out with somebody, which is okay,
Yeah.
right? But if we're going to look at this honestly, if we're going to look at things like, what did I actually learn? um, is this person actually a good instructor? Those people are actually very rare. The people that are good and that also are very good at coaching and teaching don't they're few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an interesting thing, like having, when a student like you comes through, where you're actually like I think there is, how can I put this? There's got to be, people have to, I think, focus more on a student like you who is more focused on trying to improve as opposed to trying to be impressed. And I
Right.
think a lot of people, they put out material and they hang out a shingle for things, and they, because they're able to impress people as
Right.
opposed to really trying to get them up to the next level or take them from where they're at to where they want to be, or at least kind of get them in that general direction.
Or even just deliver a framework for how to think about things, or a framework for how to improve, right? Just
Right.
like, here are some things, and no matter where you're at right now, if you incorporate these things into your whatever, uh,
Hmm.
you can bring those into your own practice, your own game, your own teaching, and you'll improve.
Yeah.
And that happens in our world, in the world that you have had a huge part in putting together here. That happens all the time, and it's really fucking exciting for me, because I go to these classes, and every time I go, it's like, that was great.
Yeah.
Like the first time I went to Cecil Birch's class, my my coaching and performance of jiu-jitsu improved immediately.
Hmm.
And he didn't, like, there's nothing, like, if you looked at Cecil's curriculum, you could show that to anybody and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, yeah, it makes sense. But you didn't deliver it the way he delivered it, and you didn't explain it the way he explained it,
Yeah.
and you didn't highlight the points that he highlighted, right? And the same thing can be said about Craig's classes, right? You could write out Craig's curriculum for ECQC or EWO and hand it to somebody, and somebody who knows a little bit about anything would look at it and be like, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. That makes total sense."
Yeah.
But you weren't there, right? You didn't hear the way it was delivered. You didn't hear the way. You didn't see. You didn't see the interaction between the instructor and the assistant instructors and the students, and what was emphasized, what wasn't emphasized. So anyway, point being that, you and I'm sure you have sat through classes where you're just like, I got zero out of this. I got nothing. It was maybe cool to meet this guy for the most part, but it's generally just mostly worthless. Pretty much anybody who I've paid to train with recently, who's in some way even peripherally involved with Combatives Association, Deeds of Arms, with your stuff, has been just absolutely top notch. And these are all names. And the reason I keep hammering on this is because these are all names that probably 3 years ago now, I'd never heard before. Never knew. And there's this world of incredibly good instructors and incredibly good training out there that's becoming more and more accessible. The awesome thing is that most of these guys' classes just fill up instantly. That's a phenomenal sign, because this kind of stuff, man, was a really hard sell back. I say back in the day, but like back when we were doing it, you couldn't get 20 or 30 people to want to go do this stuff and train really hard and have their egos bruised for a weekend. It just didn't happen,
Yeah. And I think part of it too is like, it's like, like you and I are on the same age. So it's like, we got raised in the 80s and 90s. Like, people didn't care, you fuck your kid up. So it's like a lot of people, out there, like, they had their childhood cut short, you know what I mean? Right? It was really fucked up. And now, like, it's like the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like I'm meeting young 20-year-old guys, and it's like they've had their childhood extended like way too far.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of them, they're looking for kind of training like this as kind of a de facto rite of passage, and right. it wasn't designed to be that, and I talked to Craig about this, and he even said like it's not something like he's really interested in becoming or making it, right? But that there's something to be said about that too. It's like the culture is ready for it, because it's like something about that experience, right? I mean, you're getting the opportunity to be beat up, be shot, or maybe prevail, right? Or even end up in a no-win situation, and you get all the trauma of experience that, or excuse me, you get all of the damage without any of that kind of post-traumatic stress. So you actually get to experience some kind of we'll call it like post-traumatic growth, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And even if you don't have the big dramatic kind of period on the weekend, like you would in let's just say like in Craig's classes, where you have the evolutions, and those really like stick with you, right? But even if you just show up and you have your ideas challenged, that's rare today. Unfortunately. And not even today, it's always been that way. People want to pay for validation. They don't want to pay to be challenged, right? Almost universally in every course that I've attended in the last couple of years, you're being challenged in some way. And it's cool because the people that show up to these things are generally much higher quality, right? When we would do like Krav Maga workshops, and the dudes from all these different martial arts schools would show up, and they're all black belts, and they want to tell you about how they approach the problem, how they do this, and it's all crap, it's all terrible, and they're essentially disagreeing with the entire thing that you're presenting, even though like I can see that they've improved. Like I can see that what you were doing before was not working, and what you're doing now is working. But there's like cognitive dissonance, right? They're like, well, my sensei told me this and this and this, or this is how we do it. Whatever, that's cool. Tell me whatever you want. But they're not. My point is that they weren't there to be challenged. They were there to validate their own thing, right?
That's what I love about Sims, because Sims, it does a good job in disproving all your beliefs. It's
Right.
like I put the I made this meme a couple months ago. It was like the fuck your feels trifecta. Is like, doesn't matter how you feel. It's like you got the blue guns, the training knife, and the shot timer. It's
That's right.
like you know what I mean. Like don't tell me what you think. Don't tell me what you feel. Like,
Yeah.
let's get the
Let's
blue
see.
guns. Let's get
Yeah,
one of
let's
the
see.
blue toys out and play, and let's see what happens. Right.
Right. Let's see. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it's cool, man. There's few things in my life anymore that really that I can do without injuring myself,
Mm.
that are that put me in kind of uncomfortable places. So, I've said this. I think I said this to Eric and Aaron on their podcast. But the range master thing was the most stressful uh, course that I've done since the starting strength thing, and a lot of that was my own fault because of equipment issues.
Yeah.
But when I in the past I've gone to classes, and even in myself, it's like a validation thing. It's like, okay, yeah, what I've been doing is working, because here I am at this class and I'm performing well and I'm doing a great job and I'm like in the top whatever of the shooters, and I feel good about myself when I leave.
Mhm.
I'm not looking for that anymore. Like, I like to show up, and even if there's no competitive component to the classes,
Mhm.
I just the nature of the training makes it so that I have a little bit of stress. I have a little bit of nerves. Like, I want to perform well, and I get pissed at myself when I don't perform well. Um, and that's a lot of times learning something new at the same time that I'm doing that stuff. But there's so few opportunities at this point for that kind of stuff to happen, that this world provides that. And that's, I think back to kind of your original question. That's why I do this stuff. Anything that I'm involved in, I want to be getting better at it. So
Yeah.
um, I've always approached things that way. I think if I haven't learned something new or discovered that I've been fucking something up,
Yeah.
every 6 months, then I think I'm on the wrong track. I think something's wrong. You've got to be constantly analyzing and testing the things that you're doing, and that's the only way to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally agree with that, and talking about, or just kind of going back to your point, as far as like where people, they'll look at the curriculums of these things and just kind of like, oh, well, that's not, they'll say something to the effect of like, it's not that impressive. And it's
Right.
like, it's not that. I would say that content wise, almost all of the quality folks are doing mostly the same thing, right? I mean,
Yep.
even in the strength world, right? People are doing some type of squat, deadlift, press,
Right.
and bench, and but it's not the content; it's the structure, the delivery,
Right.
the interaction. As far as it's the presentation. It's like that, like the way the presentation, like that's really what you're getting for, and it's also one thing that really stuck out to me is like watching, you coach with Mark when we did the last lift shoot fight, was the insight as far as like why you're doing this, what can happen, and what you're preventing, how you're mitigating all these other risk factors as well. Like, those are the things I don't think people understand,
Right.
and that's something, because it's going to come with experience. And you've got Tom with 40 years of shooting, Rip with 40 years of lifting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so on, right? Which brings us to the next question, right? Or brings us to the next thing. We've got the new year coming up. So we already know what that means. It's the gyms are going to be packed. Everybody's going to be putting on their New Year's sale, new year, new you kind of thing.
Right.
And we've got an interesting camp coming up. Let's tell the people about that camp, as far as this brainchild you had for several years, and how it can help them as far as jumpstart their focus and their training for the upcoming for 2023.
Yeah, it's called Lift Shoot Fight, and it's December 17th and 18th. It's here in Wichita Falls, Texas, 2 hours north of Dallas, 2 hours south of Oklahoma City. But the reason we're doing it here is because we have everything we need to be able to do it here. We've got the gym is set up perfectly for it.
Yeah.
We've got the range, we've got the jiu-jitsu school. So in terms of the venues, this is a great place to do it, and it's relatively cheap to stay here and come here and stuff. So, and then also for the starting strength fans, the truth is the majority of people that come to that are starting strength fans, and they want to come here and they want to meet Rip and they want to see the gym anyway, right? So, but yeah, the whole intent for that thing, because I get this question all the time. It's like, well, okay, so you're doing all these things in 2 days. You're not even going to scratch the surface. What's the point? And you get the gun guys. They're like, well, what could they teach you in a half a day of on the range? What can they teach you in half a day of in the gym? And there's some truth to that, but that's not the point. The point is not to give you a comprehensive, entire curriculum on everything you need to know about strength and conditioning, everything you need to know about shooting, and everything you need to know about integrating weapons into a fight. The whole point of this is to give you, number one, an introduction to all of them, and a damn good introduction, by the way. I mean, it's not just like, here's a few things and then goodbye. It's like, it's a pretty good introduction to strength training, a pretty good introduction to firearms, and a really good introduction into combatives. But the point is to give you a framework and a foundation to work off of. So you come to the camp, you see what we're doing, and you will have enough information and enough drills and enough things in your notes to be able to take for the next year or 6 months or whatever, and integrate that into your life. Whether it's the strength training or your dry fire or whatever, whatever the solution looks like for you. It's a primer, so to speak, or a or kind of a launching point, kind of a starting point for all of those things. So that's the best way I can explain it. It's you can't. There's only so much that you can retain and do over the course of a weekend, and you'll find a lot of times that when you train a lot, it's like the second time you go do a class, you realize how much you missed the first time. You may go the first time and be like, man, that was great, I learned so much. And then you go the second time, like, man, this is like deeper. This is deep. Like there's more to this than I knew last time. And so even if you're coming for the second time, you're going to get more out of it the second time. And it'll be better this time than it was the first time too. I mean, every time I do something, it gets better, because I'm never comfortable with how the last time went. I always want to pick it apart and figure out how to make it better. So, and I'm sure you're the same way, John. That's the main reason that I asked you about this. We were at, I guess it would have been ECQC. This was maybe a year and a half ago or something like that. And I've been thinking about doing something like this for a long time. I had almost set it up somewhere in Georgia, because we have a starting strength coach who's in Georgia, who works at a facility that has a gym and a combatives room and an indoor range. So we were going to set up there. It didn't work out scheduling wise and stuff. So it was kind of just sitting there, and I always wanted to do it. I was going to do it myself. And then you and I had been talking for a while. I was like, shit, man, let me see if John is interested in doing this. We could just do it together, And the other thing is, like, who am I, right? I could do this, and I would get a bunch of starting strength fans, and it would have been fine, would have been great. But a big reason for wanting to include you is to just expand this whole concept into kind of another world, because at the end of the day, I'm the starting strength guy. No one knows me as anything else, really. I'm starting strength. So
well, that's why we're doing this, because that'll change in no time. So
yeah, man. So primer is the way to look at it. It's here's a launching point. Here's some foundational stuff. Take this with you. Go train. Go do these things. And we do the Q&A, right? And people ask, well, what do I do after this? And then we give them advice, depending on their situation and stuff. But everything you need to kind of organize your thinking in terms of self-defense, right? And self-defense isn't just learning a martial art. It's not just learning self-defense. It's it's more than that. If you want to take it seriously, the most important thing is that you're fit. Like, if you're going to have to fight somebody, you got to be able to handle yourself. You got to be able to move. You got to be strong enough to function. Right. So
Yeah.
these are all, go ahead, man.
No, and then a lot of what you guys are doing too on the strength side is preventing people from succumbing to illnesses.
Right.
And that's the main thing that'll get people. I mean, when we look at the top 10 causes of mortality in the United States, I mean, they're health related problems, and
Yep.
building strength, excess muscle mass, durability, those things help you fight off the majority of the problems you're going to experience in life.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And I mean, we're at the end of the day, we're physical beings. We interact with the physical world, and our physical existence is 100% dependent on how well we can move and how much force we can produce in our environment. I mean, that sounds really grandiose, especially coming from like a strength coach, but
Yeah.
it's
true. It's still true.
If you really think about it for a second, when you start to deteriorate in later age, it's 100% a strength issue. It's not a flexibility issue. It's not an endurance issue. It's a strength issue, and anybody who is involved in anything that taxes your body, if they're honest with themselves, will understand that the limiting factor in terms of longevity is how long can your joints continue to do this, right? And strength is probably the biggest factor and we're not talking about everybody becoming power lifters, right? We're just talking about getting stronger. Just getting stronger should become a lifelong endeavor.
Yeah.
Keep getting stronger, keep getting better at shooting, keep getting better at fighting, and 2, 3, 4 times a year, put them all together. Find a way to integrate the 3 things. But the best use of your time, if you can think about if there's a thing that you could do over 2 or 3 days, the best use of your time would be to learn how to get stronger. No shit. I mean, fuck everything else. Don't run. Don't do kettlebells. Don't do kettlebells.
Now we're gonna get people throwing kettlebells at me.
I know. Don't waste your time, dude. And it always comes down to so why does this all even matter? Because we're busy and productive people, right? And we have time is not on our side. We need to be as efficient as possible. So everybody has permission to do whatever they want, right? But if you want efficiency of movement, if you want efficiency in terms of not overloading not overloading is the wrong word, but not creating overuse injuries. You want to move as efficiently as possible. You want to make your time in the gym as efficiently as possible. Using 4 to 7 exercises in the gym with the barbell primarily is the best, most efficient use of your time. Provided that you don't want to spend 3 to 4 hours in the gym, provided that you care about progressing your strength because you understand that progressing your strength improves your performance in all things, and provided that you care about spending the least amount of time possible you can in the gym. Barbells are the answer to that. Yeah. Outside of that, you need to learn how to use a handgun. You need to learn how to use a handgun at extreme close ranges, like within arm's length, because anybody can teach you how to shoot at 21 yards. Maybe not well, but you'll be fine. Very few people can teach you how to shoot well and handle a weapon well within arm's reach. So there should be some time spent on that, a significant amount of time spent on that. And you should spend a significant amount of time grappling. I truly believe that if you spend a lot of time grappling, and this comes from, my background, I started in Muay Thai, and I didn't get heavily into jiu-jitsu until comparatively, recently, so I spent a lot of years striking primarily, and I've taught people how to strike. I've taught people how to grapple. I've taught people how to wrestle. And I 100% at this point in my life believe that if you know how to stand up with somebody and grapple, and you know how to clinch fight, and you know how to do jiu-jitsu, you can pretty much learn anything else in the fighting realm. I mean, you could teach somebody how to strike because you already know about range. You already know how to move. You already know about balance. You already know about positioning. You already know how to be efficient. So anything else can be layered on top of that pretty easily. So again, in terms of efficiency, it's clinch fighting and it's jiu-jitsu. And those are probably the like in lift shoot fight, last time we didn't spend any time on the ground, and I think that's fine because you can go learn the ground stuff anywhere. Effective clinch fighting is not easy to teach. You know, and you do a great job of teaching it. So that's where we're going to spend the time, because if we only have, 6 hours with you, let's give you that, and then you can take it with you and integrate it to wherever you train, right?
Yeah. And so people understand too why we're starting with the clinch part as opposed to going to the ground part. Because most of the time you see the street fights and there is some type of fall down or push down that leads to some type of ground fighting entanglement. And it's not to say that you shouldn't learn how to fight on the ground, but the thing is, you should probably learn how to prevent that from happening, right? Or at least turn it to where they can't hold you and control you, right? I mean, because life has walls, there's cars, etc. So you should learn how to manipulate, move them, so that way you're not dealing with those situations. Because if you're in a pin position, that's really the most dangerous. You have the least amount of time. So dealing with things where it's like the areas where this will kill you, right? That's really where we're focused on. The other thing too, I think is worth mentioning is metrics. Because I mean, we've had several people during that coaching time, they had PRs in their lifts anywhere from like 50 to 90 pounds. Like I remember Shiva went from like 340 or 360 in his power clean or something like that to like a 440 or something. It was nuts.
Yeah, just because he was setting up wrong, right? I mean, we just we cleaned up his form, and he immediately improved his performance just from mechanic. He didn't get any stronger in that 15 minutes it took to fix that up. But he just mechanically was able to move more weight, and that's beneficial if you're interested in getting stronger, right? The other thing about the clinch, to kind of extend it a little further, another way to look at it, and the way I explain it a lot, is look, if you get into a clinch, which you will get into a clinch fight, and you don't know what to do, the fight will go to the ground and it won't be on your terms. Right. So that's the whole deal, right? Who's been there more times, and if it's somebody who fights a lot and somebody who's comfortable fighting and somebody who's gotten their ass kicked a whole bunch, which is probably who you're going to be dealing with, it's not a matter of skill, man. It's just who's been there more often, and it's not you. So fix that. Like, make it so that you're the one that's been there more often. And like I said, the majority of the time, it should be spent getting better at the clinch. It's been my experience that if you focus on clinch work, everything gets better. Your striking gets better.
And everything you do in the clinch, better. You could do on the ground too.
No question. It's the same thing.
Yep. So, all right, Nick. So, we've got a lot of questions too. People want to bring this to their town or to their gym, and they're asking about having this type of clinic. And I think they kind of they recognize that while it's kind of a peak or a kind of a surface level view as far as like, but I think they recognize the degree and the depth that we can approach this from. So. If people are interested in, as far as like bringing this type of program, this camp to where they're at, what are the things that they would need as far as setting this up?
I think there is a market, and I think it would be reasonable to do this to do a different version of this. I don't think I'd call it lift shoot fight. I think maybe you would call it something else. But I think there's an opportunity, and I've been thinking about doing this with the starting strength gyms around the country, because a lot of those guys have approached me too and said they wanted to do something kind of local to them. The hardest thing is going to be finding a range, right? That we can all do. So I think if we eliminate the range work, I think that we can get a lot done in the gym, and then using cert pistols and then maybe sim guns. So we could get a lot done with just a gym a barbell gym, and some mats. And we probably don't even need mats. I mean, we could do it if the gym is big enough. We could do it on some turf, or we can do it even in like a classroom or something like that. So I think that opens up the possibility quite a bit for a similar thing. And I don't think we would lose much. You know, I think especially if people already, because what we cover on the range is basic stuff. And then last time we did this, it was a lot of the people, the majority of them had very little experience with firearms. So the expectation would be then that they either are going to get some instruction somewhere else, you know, live fire, or, you know, or even if they don't, whatever. I think that we could cover a lot of this stuff dry with cert pistols and sim guns in a classroom. You know, I don't see any problem with that. So yeah, I think maybe in the future we have like the flagship thing here where we can do all 3 venues. And then we could do a traveling version where there's where it's a barbell gym and cert pistols, you know, something like that. I think and we could probably add a lot more to it too. We could add like movement with the guns and some other stuff too.
Yeah, and you know, got helmets, got T-guns, we'll travel. So we can make it happen wherever you're at. So
right.
All right, Nick. So hey, brother. So we're coming up on an hour now. So you know, we got the TLDR generation now. So we got. So I like to keep it around an hour, man. But it just went by so fast. So we could talk a lot more about this, just training methodology, just how people. They're just kind of like the anti-intellectual approach that people take when they're starting to learn this stuff.
Right.
So, but yeah, I definitely think we should do that next time. But like in the meantime, like how do people get a hold of you? Like how do they get involved with starting strength? If they're in Iowa Park and they want to fight, like where do they go?
Iowa Park's not big, so they probably know where we're at already. You know, regardless of the reputation, you know, based on how many students we have, not all of Iowa Park likes to fight. So
you gotta tell Rick that then.
Well, man, he's right, dude. I mean, he's right. They'll fight you. They'll fight you, man, even if they don't know how. Anyway, so startingstrength.com is our main source for starting strength, and there's thousands of articles. There's tons of articles. All of our content goes through there first. We've got the YouTube channel. We've got the podcast Starting Strength Radio that goes up on all of the audio networks on Fridays, and then it's on the video on our subscription channel. But you can at least listen to us every week, and it's not really training related most of the time. Mostly it's we're talking shit. So so we've got Starting Strength Radio podcast, startingstrength.com. Starting Strength Gyms is our gyms, franchise gyms around the country. And then for me personally, my website is liftfightwin.com. And it's supposed to be a blog, but I hardly keep up with it. But all my contact information is on there. And then, you know, Instagram, Facebook, all that. Probably not Facebook, but Instagram. It's what is it? Nick D_SSC is my Instagram account.
Awesome, bro. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to getting out to the Mecca and hanging out with you and Rip soon. So guys, if you guys want to sign up to Lift Shoot Fight, you can go to Asgard Co. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description. It's up on, it just popped up too as well. So if you guys head to that website, sign up, guys, you'll get just about everything you're going to need to work on for the entire year. You're going to learn how to get strong, keep those health problems away, stay durable, so you can start getting into some jiu-jitsu, stay strong during training. I mean, if you're doing jiu-jitsu and strength training, I mean, that's pretty much all the cardio you're going to need, right?
That's right. That's right.
And then, you know, integrate some handgun stuff for when people are out of arm's reach. And you're a pretty well-rounded, dangerous person with those 3 skills. So so make sure you guys sign up, and see you soon. Nick, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, man. A great time.
Thanks, John.
All right.